All right, it is noon, so we're gonna get started. Bridget, can I just confirm that you can hear me one more time?
Yes, loud
All
and
right, perfect. Thank you guys for joining us today for today's Tech Tuesday. My name is Vanessa. I'm one of the ITS communication specialists in ITS. And today we also have Bridget McFadden, who's co-hosting. She's our other ITS communication specialist, and we both use Qualtrics quite a bit. And we get a lot of questions, every day about different ways to use Qualtrics and how to use Qualtrics and things like that. So this is a session we give pretty regularly because since it's such a popular tool, we just want to make sure everybody understands how Qualtrics works, how you can build surveys, and how you can analyze all the data that you receive from your respondents. So that's what today's session is going to be about. If you're a beginner and you've never used it before, that's totally okay. That's why we're going through the basics today. And even if you are familiar with Qualtrics, there may be some things that you didn't realize you could do with the tool, or maybe ways to best optimize your survey. So we're hoping that this is helpful for you today as well. So let's get started. Before I continue, if you do have questions at any point during today's session, feel free to use the chat box in Zoom. There's a little talk bubble at the bottom of your Zoom window, and you can type any questions in there, and Bridget and I will answer all your questions as we go through today's session. And just to answer a very popular question, I am recording this session so I can upload it online and then share it with you later on, as well as some helpful links. So yes, you will be getting a copy of the session, so feel free to rewatch it if you need to, or even share it with colleagues who couldn't make it today. All right, so let's get started. So what is Qualtrics? Basically, it's a survey tool that ITS offers. It's very, very intuitive once you start getting into the system. It's really easy to put surveys together. There's a lot of different question types that you can use because we have an enterprise license. If you're using the free one, you wouldn't have access to as many of the questions that we have, especially if you're using third-party apps like I know SurveyMonkey is very popular, but if you're not using the paid version, which is what we have at Cornell, you won't get as many question types as you will with Qualtrics. So that's a really great feature that you can take advantage of with this tool. Qualtrics has really cool features like email triggers, which is basically somebody fills out the survey, maybe you get a notification about it. The people who responded to your survey get updates that are all automated. So those are really cool things about Qualtrics that you can take advantage of. You can reuse almost every piece of your survey. So let's say you have like a customer satisfaction survey that you send out maybe quarterly or something to your colleagues. You don't have to continue to create that from scratch every time. You can just take parts of the survey, reuse them, and then collect new data whenever you need to. You can also use participant panels from survey to survey. So if you have like little groups of people that you want to survey, throughout a certain amount of time, like throughout a year, you can create participant panels and do stuff like that. So there's a lot you can do. I'm just kind of touching the surface of what you can do with Qualtrics. But I think the best part is that there's no additional cost to departments. You don't have to make a special request to use Qualtrics. All you have to do is log into a website with your CVID and password, and you can start using it immediately. So we do have another survey tool called RedCap. And occasionally we get the question of when should I use Qualtrics to do a survey versus RedCap? And that's a very good question. I would say as a general rule of thumb, if you're collecting PHI or PII data, like very sensitive information about patients, sometimes it's better to use RedCap. We have signed a business associate agreement with Qualtrics so that data is protected. But a lot of times, if you're doing research studies that require things like integration of data with Epic, for example, RedCap is definitely the way to go. That's something that we really can't do as well in Qualtrics. So we do have a website, survey.med.cornell.edu, where you can go and look at policies surrounding data collection. But some of the best people that can tell you whether you should use RedCap versus Qualtrics and give you access to RedCap if needed, we have a team called ARCH, which stands for Architecture, Research, Computing, and Health. And they are all great. They deal with research informatics. So if you do have questions about which you should use, I mean, definitely you can contact me, but also arch-support@med.cornell.edu is another great resource. And that team would be able to help you, with any survey questions you might have, particularly regarding patient data. So if you want to start a survey in Qualtrics, how can you do that? Really easy. You just go to this URL, weillcornell.qualtrics.com. That's all you have to do. And you log in with your seaweed and password. And once you do that, you'll be taken to the enterprise version, the Cornell version of Qualtrics. And that's it. You're logged in, and then you just start making your surveys. So I'm going to tell you in just a bit, I'm going to go through a demo of how you can create a very simple survey and then kind of use those as the building blocks when you create your own after this. But this happens a lot. You know, you take this course or you go to this demo and you try to make a survey like a week later, and then you just forget everything I said. And that's okay, because I'm recording this, one, but two, Qualtrics has a really, really great support site. So if there's something that you forgot how to do, like how to add display logic to a question, just go to qualtrics.com/support and just type in what you're trying to do. And they have like tons of articles that you can pull up with examples of how, you know, you can do anything you want in a survey. And if you're having a specific issue, which is you cannot log in to Qualtrics, that's a technical issue. So that's when you would contact ITS support for assistance, all right? So if you're having a technical problem, Qualtrics isn't working, please call ITS support. But if you kind of forgot how to do something in the tool, the Qualtrics support website is a really, really great resource. Also, one thing that we do with these sessions, we kind of show you the technical aspects of how to create a survey, but we don't really have time to ever go into what makes a good survey, what makes a good survey question. I'm actually going to be sending you some really good tips about how to write survey questions very well, but there's also guidance on the Qualtrics website, and then you do have, as Cornell employees, access to LinkedIn Learning. And I'll be sending you a link to that as well, but you can go to this website anytime and access, you know, free online tutorials about how to do specific things when creating surveys, or with any other tools we support, really. You know, LinkedIn Learning is a really robust library. So without further ado, I'm going to switch it over to my desktop. So bear with me for 1 second. Any questions we might have gotten in the meantime, Bridget, or?
Whoops, sorry, trying to get off you. No,
Okay.
no, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna go right ahead. So you guys are looking at my Qualtrics dashboard. I've already signed into weillcornell.qualtrics.com. If you have never used Qualtrics before, this middle section is going to be blank. Basically, each line item here is a survey that I have created. And these line items provide really helpful information, like just quick at-a-glance information about each particular survey. So I've got the name of my survey, the last time I created it or modified it, and then we've got 3 different types of status. So new means that you have just created this survey, but you have not activated and sent it to anybody to collect data. So this survey is just sitting here. I've never essentially turned it on so that I could start collecting information from people. And it gives me questions, or rather information about how many questions I have. And then once I activate it, responses that I've received. So this one here, this general knowledge test, is active. It has 5 questions. It's collected 100 responses so far. It also gives me a 12-day trend. So if anybody had taken it within the last 12 days, I would have seen little spikes here, which is kind of an interesting little tidbit of information. This one, because I have not activated it, it gives me a cool estimate of how long it takes to actually complete the survey, which is really useful information that you can share with your respondents once you, you know, send them your survey. You can say things like, it only takes 5 minutes to complete. Like setting expectations of how long the survey takes, I think is really important, so that people know how much time they're investing and they don't basically stop taking your survey in the middle because they don't know how long it is. This survey here, the third one, is closed, meaning it is no longer accepting data. But you can see it was 41 questions and we had 364 responses. There's no more trend or anything like that because it is closed. These 3 little dots right here also let you do a bunch of different things that, you know, like turn on your survey, share it with other people, edit, you know, lots of different things that you can do. You can also delete them, copy surveys, tons of stuff with these just 3 little dots that you can do with your surveys. As far as the menu itself, you can create folders, you know, kind of categorizing your surveys. I'm very bad at categorizing, as you can see, but you can create folders so that you can categorize and be a little more organized than me. I can also see the surveys that were shared with me. So for example, Bridget shared 8 surveys with me. I didn't create these, Bridget did, but she provided me access for whatever reason. Maybe I needed to review them or edit them in some way, but I can see which surveys that she has shared with me in particular. You can also find surveys and organize them by, I always have it by last modified, but if I needed to find the owner of a survey, for example, I could pull that up, or project type. And if you have a lot of surveys like I do, I think I'm in the hundreds at this point, you can just search here to find them a little easier. So I do a survey for SmartFest every year. So here are all of my SmartFest surveys that I can access easily instead of just like going through each one of these on the list and hoping I find it sooner. All right, so that's how the dashboard works. If I want to create a new survey, it's very easy. There's a big blue button right here. So create a new project, and that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so give it a minute to think. And so you get a few options here. Really, I always start here. Just create your own survey, and I click this button here. There are some kind of helpful guides and templates that you can look at here. But really, for the most part, I recommend that everybody just kind of create their own from scratch. Everybody has very different survey needs, and I don't feel like the templates provided can always help you. And if you start from scratch, then I think you learn how to use a tool a bit faster. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do create your own. I'm gonna click survey right here. And then I'm taken to a new page where I have to name my survey. So today I am making a survey about animal adoption, because if you've ever adopted an animal, usually you have to complete a very lengthy survey. Mine will not be that long, but I'm going to call this adopt a cat survey. I'm also going to date it because I think I've done this a few times and I don't want to confuse them. So today is, I'll just call it 9/2020. Perfect. So I am starting a blank project, but you can actually start projects from a copy in your library, from your library, which is, I'll show you where that is, but there's a dashboard at the top where you can pull old surveys from your own library, and then also a file. So you can actually download Qualtrics surveys, and they download as a specific file type. I think it's a QSF file. So if you have a colleague at another institution who created this survey and you kind of want to borrow it or look at it, they can download the QSF and then email it to you, and then you would upload it as a file so that you can just start working on it as a new survey. But for the most part, most people work from a blank project. So you're just going to name your survey and hit get started. So now my dashboard is going to completely change into a survey dashboard so that I can start creating my survey. Just a quick note, when you are creating your surveys, Qualtrics auto saves like every few seconds, so you don't necessarily have to worry about saving all the time. All right, if you're ever worried that Qualtrics never saved the last thing you did, you can always just click this XM in the top left, and it takes you back into your dashboard, but it also saves the last thing you did at the same time. So just a quick note right there for anybody who is wondering. All right, so I've got my survey ready to go to get started. And Qualtrics by default likes to give you kind of a survey, a question to start working off of, and it's always multiple choice. That doesn't mean you actually have to do a multiple choice question. You can change it to anything you want. And usually when I create a survey, I like to at least have a description at the top of what people are actually going to do in this survey to kind of set expectations. So I want to change this from multiple choice to like a descriptive text kind of thing. So the way you do that is you just move over here, and you can see this menu on the side where I can change the question type, change the number of choices and things like that. So anytime you have a question selected, this menu here changes to correspond to it. So right now it's multiple choice. All I have to do is click on it and can change it to anything I want. If I hover over any of these question types, you can see there's kind of a preview that shows up on the left-hand side of what that question could look like, all right? And even some of these, like text entry, have a few different types of options that you can use. So it's cool that you can like hover over any of these and kind of get a quick preview of what it's gonna look like. Also, I had no idea that this one had like movie actors in it. Oh, cool, and Zoolander. All right, so we're gonna do descriptive text. And then just to start typing any question or any information in Qualtrics. It's really easy. You just click on it, all right, and then you start typing. So this quick introduction is going to say, thank you for your interest in adopting, I'm gonna call this cat Sammy. We're gonna adopt a cat. Please complete this survey to be considered. All right, so boom, I'm done, that's it. However, when you have text in any part of your Qualtrics survey, you can format it very similarly to Word, like, you know, make things bold, add color, things like that. So in order to do that, I'm gonna click back on it again, and you're gonna see a tab here that says Rich Content Editor. I'm gonna click on that. And again, this is, like I said, a little similar to Word. I can change the font size, you know, bold. If I click more, I get even more options. I can add video. I can justify things left and right. I can add bullets, tables, links. I'm gonna make all of this bold. And then I'm gonna add an image. So you can add images to practically every part of your survey. You can add them from your library. Basically, you have a library in your graphics. It's actually, let me close this first. So you have a bunch of libraries here. You have a contact library, an action library. You know, if I click this, it shows me a few libraries for images and things like that. Anytime you upload an image to your from your computer into a Qualtrics survey, it saves it in your library, so you can always reuse it. So let me go back here. And let me go back to adding a picture. So right now the default is saving in my library, but I could also, if I want to just upload a new graphic from my computer if I wanted to, by clicking this green button here. And I would just choose a file or use a graphic from the web, meaning I would you know, provide a URL. In this case, I want to use a graphic that I have used before, which is this cat dressed up like a taco. All right, this is Sammy. Who wouldn't want to adopt Sammy? So I have to show a picture of him, right? And I've inserted the picture and I'm done. So I'm just gonna click out of that, and there is my introduction, okay? So I wanna add my next question. How do I do that? Very easy. You can either click this little plus symbol at the bottom of your last question, or just hit create new question, boom, and you're ready to go. So I'm gonna go through, obviously I can't go through every question type today, but I'm gonna go through probably the most popular ones. So let's try this type of question. Please provide the following information. And I wanna collect information on the person. So like their name, maybe how old they are, and their contact info. So I can't really do that with a multiple choice question. So again, I have it selected, and I'm gonna move over to our sidebar menu over here, and I'm gonna change the question type. So I basically wanna use a text entry and look at the different options available, right? So form gives me a good preview of what I kind of want mine to look like. So I'm gonna click form, all right? And where it says click to write choice, all you do is click on it and type in kind of the field, what you wanna collect, the information you're looking for. So for this one, I'm looking for full name, and then I just click out of it. I want their age. I want their email address. And let's say I wanted their phone number too, but they only gave me 3 fields. No problem. I can add a field by clicking this little plus sign over here, or while I'm in the last entry, I can just click enter, and it adds another field for me, and I can do phone number. I can also delete the field by just like hitting backspace or delete, and it gets rid of it. So it's really easy to just add and delete fields as needed. So one more time, phone number. Awesome. Okay, these fields look very small. So if I actually want the person to look like they can enter their full name, I can just click and drag the corner out so that they're a little longer, and the respondent feels like they can add their information essentially. All right, perfect. There's also a few other things you can do to like further enhance this question. So this is kind of important information, right? I don't want somebody who's filling out this form to skip this question and then submit it, because then I have no idea or no way to contact them. So one thing that you can do is validate your questions. So right here, I have the question selected. I'm going to move down to validation options. I can actually force the person to respond to this question. Otherwise, they won't be able to submit and complete the form. So if I check here, you'll see now that there's an asterisk on the question. That means it's a forced question. And when we preview it, you're going to see that I'm not able to move on unless I answer this question, okay? You can also do validation in a bunch of other cool ways. So for example, this field asks for an email address. I don't want somebody to just type whatever they want in this field. So I want to validate it to make sure that when somebody fills out this field, it has to be an email address. It can't just be whatever they want. It can't just be like a string of numbers, or they just write blah, 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 because they don't want to give you the information, right? So I'm going to click on email address, and a little blue arrow pops up, and I get a few options here. So I'm looking around for validation. One second. Oh wait, sorry, my bad. It's right here. Click here to edit form fields. Okay, so now I can add validation. All right, you can see it here on the right-hand side. So I don't need validation for full name exactly or age. I will do it for email address. So what I do is I click where it says no validation, and it gives me a few options. So I can validate an email address, so I can click on that. I can even do it for phone number. So let's do a valid phone number in the US, let's say, but you can pick a bunch of countries. And, you know, I could validate age if I wanted to. I can make sure that it is a numerical value. But that's essentially how you can make sure that the data that you are asking people for is what they're providing you in a survey. All right, so let me go back to preview mode, and let's move on to another question. So let's say we have a scenario where I want to ask the user, do you currently have any pets at home? This is a multiple choice question, and you can see that Qualtrics has automatically decided what I might be looking for. They know it's a yes or no question, although these are way too many options for the person filling it out. I just want yes or no, so I can just kind of minimize my choices here by just going down to 2. So then, do you have any pets at home? If the person answers yes, I want them to provide information about what types of pets they have at home. So it would be this follow-up question, essentially. All right, and let's say I have dog, cat, bird, and other. All right, other's a very popular response for some of these. Okay, so first of all, if I'm doing please select all that apply, it is a multiple choice question like this one, but the person filling out the survey should be able to select as many of these as they want. So that's where this menu comes in again. Again, I have a multiple choice question. I've got lots of ways to edit this to my liking. And when it comes to multiple choice questions, you have a lot of options of what type of multiple choice question you have. In this case, I want a multiple answer, meaning that the person filling out the survey can choose as many of these answers as they want. You can see it change from radio buttons up here where they have only one choice to you know, this option where they just check it off and they can select as many as they want. All right. And then for other, if I wanted them to specify what other is, I can click on this and we can allow a text entry. All right. So that creates a little field where they can specify what exactly that other pet is that doesn't fall into these categories. But the big thing, I only want question 4 to appear if they answer yes to question 3. Otherwise, if they click no, there's no reason that they should see question 4. So this is a really important thing in Qualtrics. You can add logic to questions so that people can skip over or see questions depending on how they answer, all right? So I actually want to add display logic to question number 4, all right? So if you scroll down here to actions, you can see display logic and skip logic. So display logic just lets you create conditions so that a question appears on screen, And skip logic is the opposite. So it allows people to skip over questions depending on conditions that they may or may not have met that you've set up. So let's add some display logic to this one. So now you have to come up with the parameters or conditions of when this question will appear on screen for the person. So it's really easy. So if question number 3, do you have any pets at home? If they say yes, then they get to see question 4 and you hit save. And you get this little note at the top that there's display logic that pertains to this particular question, okay? And we can test that out in just a little bit. I'm gonna add one more question to my survey, which is a very important question. All right, and these are real cats on the internet, all right? So I didn't make these up. There's Princess Monster Truck, there is the very famous Grumpy Cat, and there is Lil Bub, who I think recently passed away. That made me really sad. Okay, so I want this question type to be, I want them to rank it actually. Let me do rank order. Okay, I want them to rank these cats, you know, 1 through 3, pick your favorite, all right? And one thing you can do with Qualtrics is what I mentioned before when I was doing the descriptive text at the very top. You can add an image for like almost every part of a survey. So if I wanted to, I could add the cats. I already have them here. So there's Princess Monster Truck. She's beautiful, guys. Let's do Grumpy Cat. I'm inserting a graphic again. Grumpy Cat. Where is Grumpy Cat? Oh, right here. There's Grumpy Cat. And Little Bub. Let's add Little Bub. There's Little Bub. All right, 3 very beautiful cats that you would love in your own home, okay? And you're just gonna rank them, you know, your favorite one, because that's very important when adopting a cat, apparently. All right, so I've got all of my questions ready to go, but now I wanna test that the survey works exactly how I set it up. So I wanna test, one, that validation is working how I wanted, and that display logic is working exactly how I want it. So before you ever hit publish on your survey, definitely hit preview first. Like, please don't publish your survey until you're 100% sure that everything is working exactly how you want, all right? So let's do preview. And preview is basically showing you what this survey will look like to other people in a web browser on the left, and then on somebody's phone, which is pretty cool. And you can see that all the surveys that are on, you know, using your Weill Cornell instance are already branded. There are ways to change the logo if you need, although, you know, we pretty much ask if, you know, if you need to just keep it as Weill Cornell Medicine. But if you have questions about changing this, just contact me after, once I send you you know, the information about today's session. There's kind of a few steps to do it. So if you wanted, let's say, your department logo instead, there are ways that you can work around that. But just so you know, all surveys will have this at the top. All right, so my survey looks good, all right, but I want to make sure that it works the way I wanted. So so the intro looks great. Now I want to see if I could, let's pretend I want to skip this question to see if that validation works, okay? So I'm going to just skip ahead and click yes and try to move on. And you can see now that Qualtrics is working exactly like I wanted, and it's saying, please answer this question. So I, as the user, cannot move on until I fill this out, okay? So that is working great. In this case, just for the purpose of this, so I don't have to keep filling this out over and over, if you're testing your survey in preview mode and you want to ignore the validation just to keep moving ahead, let's say you have like a 30 question survey, you can ignore validation if you want to after you've tested that it worked, all right? So in this case, let's try again. I want to make sure that display logic works. So I clicked yes. Okay, perfect. And now I can see that follow-up question, which types of pets do you have at home? It looks like I can click as many as I want because I made it a multiple choice option, so that's great. And if I have other, let's say I have fish. All right. Select my favorite internet cat. I can move them around in ranking, so that seems to work. And then, all right, looks like my survey's working okay. I'm gonna restart it really quick just to check one thing. which is if I click no here, if that question with display logic ends up showing up on screen, which I don't want it to. And it looks like it didn't. So my survey is working exactly how I want it to. And again, the preview option, whenever you're creating a survey, I highly recommend you always, always, always go into preview mode and check it out. Another cool thing about preview mode is, let's say I was working on this survey and Bridget, I want her to look at it too to make sure that it's working fine. And so she can look at it and see if there's anything I should change or update. I can actually just highlight this whole URL, copy it, and send it to her like in a text or in an email and say, hey, can you take this survey for me and see if it works, all right? And so if she takes this survey, what ends up happening is that in the data, it shows up as preview data so that I know it's not real information that I am collecting, essentially. So it's kind of flagged as preview, so I know I can delete it if I need to in the future, which I probably would, because it's not real data that I want to collect. It's just test data. But yeah, so for getting that review from other colleagues before you essentially publish it and make it live to everyone, you would just highlight this, copy it, and then send it to whoever you need to review it, and you're done. Okay, let me get out of here and go back to my survey. All right, so there's also a few things here that you could look at to kind of further optimize your survey. Look and feel just kind of changes, like things like color and other stuff about your survey. I won't go into that too much because most of them are branded and most people don't feel the need to change them. If you do have questions about this, you can contact me. But essentially, if I click on it, it just shows things like what the arrows look like and style, and just very cosmetic things about your survey. Survey flow, I can't get into this too much today because we are running out of time, but essentially if you have a very large survey with different sections like demographics and this and that, like these are for helpful for very, very complicated large surveys. You can separate your questions into different blocks and then kind of determine the flow of what that survey will look like for people who take it. So if they get to skip blocks around and things like that, this is where survey flow comes in really handy, just so you can see what it looks like. Survey options and tools are probably the most used features here that people can use for their survey. So if I look at survey options, there's lots of things that I can look at to further customize my survey. I can make, under survey protection, for example, I can make this open access, which is the default for surveys at Qualtrics, meaning anybody can take this survey. I can also close it to people by making it invitation only. I can add password protection, things like that. I've got a survey expiration option, which is really cool. So let's say I had this survey up and I only wanted it open for 2 weeks, and I didn't want to be awake at like midnight to close the survey down on the deadline. I can actually add the validation date so that the survey closes automatically, let's say on October 22nd. And I can, I don't have to worry about having to sign in and close it myself because I forgot or anything like that. Qualtrics will just do it automatically for me. You can also customize the end of the survey message. By default, Qualtrics says something like, thanks for taking this survey, like as the end of the message, so you know that it's complete. But if you wanted to add like special follow-up information for people, you can actually customize it, and then go into your library and select any, end of message survey you've already created, or go to all the way to the bottom and click new message. And then it's like Word. You would just type in a special, message that you might want to have, like maybe I have follow-up information about, you should hear from us in the next 2 weeks. If you want to reach out to so-and-so, this is how you would do it to find out the status of your adoption process. I can add all of that here and then click save, and it's like a very customized message instead of that default one. Let me go back to default. And this one's really important, partial completion. So let's say somebody does not complete your survey. You have to decide what you want to do with that information. If they started taking it and then didn't finish, do you want to record the information after maybe they, haven't responded in a week? Or would you just rather delete it, because you find the information is not going to be useful? That's your call, but partial completion is a really important aspect to look at under survey options, just so that, you can determine which data is going to be useful. If you find that somebody filled out half the survey and that data is still important, then, record it. That's up to you. But if it's not important, delete it. All right. And then any changes you make, you just click save. And then we have tools. So I can't, again, get into all of these, but important ones are auto number questions. So a lot of times when you're doing your survey, you might feel like you forgot a question and like, oh, there should have been a question between 2 and 3. And then you add the little plus symbol, and you'll notice that the questions are now out of order. So the default for these survey questions is, if I go back in the preview, you'll notice that there are no question numbers associated with these, right? But you can turn on question numbers if you feel like that will be useful for your survey, or if you're referring to previous questions before. And you want these to be in order. So essentially, if you do tools and auto number, and do sequential numbering is what we recommend, it essentially just makes sure that everything is in order now. All right. So I have 1, 2, 3 instead of that question 6 that just jumped out at us, like out of order. All right. You can also collaborate with people. So let's say, so Bridget had that preview link, let's say, so that she could look at the survey and test it out. But what if Bridget needed to look at the data and the reports of this particular survey? I can collaborate with her so she has back-end access, and just start, typing her name. And she's right there. And I can add her, and she will get a notification from me via email saying, like, Vanessa has added you to the survey. And I can decide the permissions that she has in the survey itself. So right now she has access to edit the survey, but I can make sure she can see reports, that she can activate or deactivate the survey. She can copy it and distribute it. I can make sure that her access is exactly what I would like it to be. And then when I'm done deciding what my access is, I'm going to hit save. When you're collaborating with people at Weill Cornell, so if somebody has a seaweed and you're trying to collaborate with them and you're not finding them in that list, like I was able to find Bridget, usually what that means is the person you're trying to collaborate with has never logged into Qualtrics before. It's a weird little quirk. So if you're running into an issue where you're trying to share a survey with a Weill Cornell colleague and you just can't find them in that list to share with them, ask them to very quickly log into weillcornell.qualtrics.com, and that usually solves the problem immediately. Then once they've logged in, you're now able to share a survey with them. They just have to activate their account, essentially, for you to be able to share with them. All right. So when you're ready to publish your survey, you now have to hit publish, the green button. All right. And there's this little expert review option that kind of reviews your survey to make sure it's like as good as it can be and is collecting data. Right now I'm at fair, and I know why. It's a particular question type I used, but I'm going to go ahead and publish it. And now my survey has been published, and I have this link that I can share with other people via email, just so they can fill out the survey whenever they want. And it's now collecting real data. All right. If I ever forget what that URL is, which, unless you've saved it somewhere else, you're probably not going to remember it. I have to go under distributions. All right. And if I click under anonymous link, which is probably the most popular way to share a survey, that link is going to be right here. And I can always grab it anytime I want and share it with people. Usually when people share a survey, they just do one link that anybody can access, and they send it out. They post it on a website, or send it out via email to a listserv that they have, and people can just click it and start taking the survey. You can see here that there are lots of different ways to do it. QR code is popular I've noticed for things like grand rounds. Like if you are having a PowerPoint presentation and you want people to be able to scan a code instead of like seeing a massive URL for them to type in, they can scan a code instead, and then they'll be taken to a survey on in their browser, on their phone, or however they're scanning it on their iPad, and they can access the survey that way. You can actually compose an email in Qualtrics to send out a survey. I wouldn't recommend this as much, only because if you compose an email and send it out via Qualtrics, when people receive it in a Weill Cornell inbox, they'll get a little tag that says external on it, so that it doesn't mean, external doesn't mean that it's spam, but it means it came from an outside source. So people tend to be kind of wary about emails like that. If you're sending them to other people, like a patient satisfaction survey, it won't matter. That won't happen. But if you're sending it to people within Cornell, they might get that little tag in their header, and then might question where it came from. So if possible, just use the anonymous link and send it out that way. And personal links allow you to actually create individualized links to track exactly who opened your survey and who took it and who didn't complete it yet. If you do that, you have to create a contact list. It's normally just an Excel list with somebody's name, first name, last name, and email. And then you just create that contact list and upload it, or you can just manually type it in. But really, you just need the first 3 fields. And then once you've done that, Qualtrics will generate individual links that you can send to those people, and then end up tracking who took the survey and when. There's also text messages, social media, other things like that, but those are not as popular. So once you have completed your survey, how do you get the data? All right. So I'm going to go into another survey where I actually got data. It's going to be this general knowledge one right here. You can see I have 100 responses. So let's go in there. So there's 2 ways to see data. One is to see the raw data, like line items of how every single respondent answered, and that's under data and analysis. All right, so it's giving it a minute. So I don't really like this view of each of these line items here. It doesn't give me the whole, the whole survey, just a preview of it. So I'm gonna go here to export and import, and I'm gonna export the data. I'm going to do it as an Excel file or a CSV file, but you can see that you can do it in a few different ways. You can do it XML, you can use SPSS. So if you're using statistical software, you can download it that way. But all you have to do is hit download, and it provides, in this case, it's going to provide me an Excel sheet. Just give it a minute to think. Open. All right. And yeah, I think it's thinking too hard. Let me go into, try one more time. All right. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. Okay, so Qualtrics is going to give you a ton of data you might not actually need, but is very important. So it's going to give you like the start date somebody took a survey. But here under status, that 3rd column, when I was mentioning before about tagging something as preview data, so this is when somebody tested my survey. So I know I can delete these 2 rows right here. And anything that says IP address is an actual real response that somebody gave you, okay? And to get to the actual like meat and potatoes of your survey, you just have to scroll over until you hit a column that starts with Q1. That means question 1. So these are the actual survey answers, and I can see that raw data of how every single person answered, okay, what their answers were and things like that. So that's how I can get the raw data if I want to put it in another software, so I can run any kind of analysis that I want. However, if you just want a general overview of how everybody responded, you can also go to reports. And what reports does is it gives you these visualizations, very simple visualizations, but visualizations nonetheless of how everyone answered in your survey. So in this particular answer, I can see that most people answered the color yellow. If I move over to question 2, I get a cool visualization of how people answered this one. And I can change these visualizations to anything I want. So if I click on it, it's not as robust. You've got like bar charts and line charts and things like that. So, there's not as many options, but there are very simple options. So if I wanted to do something like, give my manager a report of how everybody responded to this particular survey, I can just go to share report, and I can do it as a PDF, Word, PowerPoint, or a CSV file. And I can send that over to my manager and say, look, this is how everybody responded to this particular survey. She has a very nice report that I can customize if I have it in like PowerPoint, for example. and just give her an idea of how people are filling out this particular survey. So this was kind of a very quick rundown, and I know that we're at 12:45, but I still want to answer questions if people have any. But this is like a very kind of quick overview of very, very basics of Qualtrics. I mean, there's so much you can do with it, but when it comes to just creating a survey and putting it out there for people to see and viewing the data, this is the basics of how to do it, all right? We do have other Qualtrics survey sessions that I recorded that I can send you as well of how to use a few more of our advanced features. So if you're interested in those, I'll be sharing those with you via email. But if you have any questions now about Qualtrics, I'm happy to answer anything that I just showed you today. Were there any questions, Bridget, while I was going through everything?
Hi, there were not. There was one earlier from Jess that she asked privately, but it might be valuable for everyone else to hear. She just asked, is there a way to use Qualtrics as an add-on for Teams? It would be great if we could access it and insert the survey into a team chat.
So there's not that's a good question. There's not a specific add-on that I'm aware of. You could just share the link, the distribution link in a Teams chat, and people can take the survey that way. That's probably the only way that you can do it at the moment, but there's not like as far as I know, a special plugin. I'd have to look it up for you. While I'm answering questions, I'm actually sending out a poll to everybody about today's session. It is anonymous, so we do use this feedback to kind of help us with our next sessions and improve each one. So if you guys wouldn't mind filling this out while I'm doing the Q&A, that would be great. Any other questions, Bridget?
Yeah, a couple just came in. Is it possible to collaborate with someone who is an NYP as opposed to Cornell?
So you can't collaborate with people outside of Weill Cornell, unfortunately. You have to, unfortunately, because this is an institutional service, you can only collaborate with people who have a Weill Cornell email address. You can share the preview link with them, of course, so that they can take the survey that way. But you can't collaborate the back end with them, unfortunately. So if you do want to share the back end of a survey, actually, one way that you can do it is, give me 1 second. Let me go back to this one. So I believe it's under survey tools. Yes. So you can actually export a survey or import a survey, and you can share the survey file with them that way if they're from another institution. Another important thing is export survey to Word. I know that I've gotten questions from people who are creating surveys for IRB approval, and they need to provide a copy of the survey they're creating. You can actually export the whole survey to Word and attach it to that approval or to that submission, so that you can get approval and they can see the survey that way. So hopefully that provides some help for working with people at other institutions.
Awesome. A couple more. Can you send link and QR code in the same email when distributing the survey?
Sure. I mean, nothing really stops you from doing that. Yeah, you can add both. I mean, people might have a preference. I usually just pick one over the other. It kind of depends on the situation. Like right now, if I'm presenting this and I need you to fill out a survey, I'd probably just stick to the QR code because it's a screen. So there wouldn't really necessarily be a way for you to click a hyperlink unless I put it in the chat. And then people might have difficulty finding it. But, yeah, nothing really stops you from adding multiple ways of, distributing a survey.
And then Francesca says, sometimes when I make changes, it doesn't show up on the preview. I can see it in the dashboard, but it doesn't save in the preview.
Huh, that's interesting. I don't know if I've run into that issue myself. One thing that I might recommend is if something isn't showing up in the preview for some reason that you've changed in your survey, try to hit this XM on the top left so that it auto saves your survey and then go back in to see if maybe that would trigger things to show up in your preview. That's like one thing I would try. And if you're still having a problem, I don't know, shoot me an email because I'm actually curious. I've never seen that before. But I would try this first just to make sure it's kind of maybe refreshing your survey, and it might work that way.
And then one more, we may need a couple more details on this question. How can the rest of the employees receive it after the patient completes it via email?
How can the rest of employees see it? Oh, so if a patient fills out a survey and you want everyone else to see the data?
It sounds like that's what Vanessa's asking. Yes.
Okay. There's a couple ways to do that. Let me go into reports. So one thing that's really cool, and as somebody who creates a lot of surveys, one question I get a lot from other people who don't have access to the survey is, how did people respond today? And if you don't want to go in here every day and tell people how they did, how the survey is doing, you can go to the share report, and there's a few things you could do. One is manage public report. And basically you can make a public version of the survey available and get a URL code to send to them. And you could send them this link, and it basically gives them a real-time view of how people are responding to the survey. All right, that's one way. The other way is, if I go back to share report, I can schedule an email that can go out as frequently as I like that has the results of the survey, essentially. So I can create a contact list, essentially, of the people who should get this email. I can make it from myself and change this email. It doesn't have to come from survey@qualtrics.com or whatever. I can decide when I want this to go out, maybe every Monday or once a month. You pick, essentially, and the time even. I can create a subject. I can have it attached as a PDF, any of these formats. And then I might write a message like, these are the survey results for this week, if it's a weekly thing, and then hit save. And then what that does is it just creates a report every week. It just runs a report every week and sends it to the people that you want to get it. So if there are people in your department who need to see the survey results every week, you would just add them to this email and they would get it. So those are two ways that you could do it. Anything else that I might have missed in the chat?
I think, oh, one more from Deanna. Can this be embedded into the survey thank you message?
Can this be embedded in the survey? What is this? Just so I'm clear.
Yeah, Deanna, what are you going to embed? The survey results.
So yes. The answer is yes. Deanna, it's a little complicated, but if you are really looking to do that, email me after I contact everybody, and I will kind of figure out what is it you're trying to do exactly and figure out how you can embed the survey results. But yes, the short answer is that you can.
Cool. She says, thank you.
All right.
I think that's it for questions for now.
Okay, well, that's fine. I ran a little over, guys. I'm so sorry, but I really appreciate everybody who stayed on and who filled out our little short survey. So thank you so much. And if you, again, I'm going to be kind of rendering this video. Give me about a day to, make sure that I've got it edited down and things like that. And then I'll be sending everybody who registered an email with this video, as well as some helpful links and those links to the past videos I did with more advanced features that you could try out on your own. And again, if you have any questions, just write back to that email, and we'll do our best to help you out with whatever specific use case you have. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Bridget, thank you as always for being co-host. It's always really helpful.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.